and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode number 84. And the title of this episode is All Reports Are Pointing to a Major Event Coming this July. And basically, we are seeing many things turn up and many things happening where it really does, from the facts that I see, from things that are being said, that something is definitely coming this July, around the July 4th time period. And we'll discuss as we go through this report why and why I think this is going to happen. And we're getting the same similar reports from other places, and not just from what I've been saying, but other people have been saying this. And recently, Doug Hagman was contacted by his DHS insider and also confirming that something is going to happen this July 4th. And, you know, I put up on the x22report.com site, if you haven't visited the site yet, on the right-hand side, I put up potential false flags, and these false flags are to push an agenda, a bill, into law, or to get the American people to do something. So on that right-hand side, I list everything there. And, you know, there can be more out there. I mean, I just have what I know about. And, of course, I can't know about everything. So there can be a lot more going on. And we don't know what type of event and they're going to try to pull off. But we can make some assumptions on the facts that we do know and what is going on in the world. For instance, Obama and his administration and the government itself is getting hit with, Benghazi, IRS, the wiretappings, now spying on Americans through the internet and phone calls for many, many years. And things are starting to fall apart. And most of the time, when this happens, they need some type of distraction. Plus, we also know that they have bills pending in the Senate, and they really need to push these bills and make them into laws to back up their agendas that they're going through. I mean, they are trying to get the guns away from the American people, and they know they have to do this. I said they have to control the internet. They know they have to do this. They've been spying on people all along, and this is all coming out now, and they are getting nervous. They are getting nervous in a way where they need to do something to stop all this. So, they need some type of distraction or some type of main event where it can push all of this through the Senate and make it a law. And we know certain facts. We know that the president already created the executive orders for the gun control bill, which also matches the UN Arms Treaty. We also know that he created the executive orders for the CISPA bill. Even though he says he's not going to sign it, then why would he create executive orders that reinforce the CISPA bill? It makes no sense whatsoever. So we know he's going to sign it as soon as it's passed. And right now, he knows he doesn't have the support behind these bills. So what does the government need to do to get these things moving and the support? They create events. They create false flags to push this stuff through. Now, we're going to talk about that much more in detail as we go through this report. And I just wanted to start out going through the economic news and talk about what is going on in the world, because there is a lot going on. And we see the volatility of the markets. One day they're up, one day they're down. They tried their best. The high-frequency trading, the plunge protection team, the Fed, they tried everything to try to push this market up, but they just couldn't do it. I mean, if you look, Asia's down. Again, the Nikkei going back down. The European markets down. American markets down. They push gold. They're keeping it steady under 1400, and they're starting to lose control of what is going on. And we know that at this point, they realized that this was going to happen eventually. This is not a surprise. I mean, to those people who are sleeping, yeah, it's a surprise. But for them, this is not a surprise. They knew eventually things would start to fall apart and they would not be able to continually pump this up. And we saw the unemployment tick up. And you have to remember what the Fed said. They said that they would start tapering and they would start easing back on quantitative easing when unemployment comes down and it reaches a certain mark. But as you can see, the unemployment is going the other way, even though they changed the calculations, which kind of saves them, where they can say, you know what, we can't taper off right now. We need to do more QE. We need to pump these markets up even more. I mean, they're not going to say pump up the markets, but they're going to tell you that they're going to want to do more QE because what they base this off of is not coming true. So to convince everyone that to bring this unemployment back down, we're going to have to really, open the floodgates and start printing a lot more money, and you're going to see the market go up again. But again, they are losing control because whenever someone continually starts to print a lot of more money, this is the end game here. And a lot of places and a lot of people are talking about this, and we're seeing it actually come true. And in one of the places that we're seeing that this is coming true, Gerald Celente says first you have currency wars. Then you have trade wars, and then there's real war. Well, we've seen currency war last year, coming into this year, and now we're starting to see trade wars. And let me just read, this was an article just 1 month after we discuss the ArcelorMittal's demand that Europe seek sanctions against China's steel tariffs. What else? Following unfair tit-for-tat wine Chinese trade practices after EU solar panel tariffs, Reuters reports that the EU is indeed to press the WTO to rule against Chinese duties on imported steel. While history never repeats, it merely rhymes. This episode of this collapse in economies, markets, and trade is now showing signs of the same desperation as during the Great Depression, as intervention, devaluation, and now protectionism are brought to bear to save the domestic economy at all costs. So basically, we're starting to see this, and we saw this back in the Great Depression. I think I mentioned this in episode 2, where they implemented tariffs, and we are starting part 2, I think it's episode 7, I'm sorry. And we're starting to see this now. So basically, we are coming full circle now. The Fed, central bankers, government, they know the collapse is coming. This is not a surprise. But we are starting to see things escalate. We're starting to see things accelerate, and we're starting to see things move forward at a quicker pace right now. And if you look in Turkey right now, the riots are now spreading. They're getting more intense. The Turkish police have taken in custody several dozen lawyers for joining the ongoing protests. The arrests in Istanbul come as police launched a crackdown on protesters in the city's Taksim Square. And right now, I was watching and I saw some pictures of Istanbul war zone. Thousands of protesters tried to reclaim Taksim Square, and it is continually escalating. And we're seeing more and more protesters come out. And the Prime Minister is, steadfast, not yielding to the protesters. And I believe this is because the central bankers, the United States, is saying, do not step down. We don't know who's going to take your place, and you are a strategic country that we need. So for the upcoming war, so you need to stay where you are and deal with these people. And that's what we're seeing happening. Now, in Syria, U.S. moves closer to arming rebels. Moves to arm Syria's opposition have been accelerated in the U.S. following a key defeat for the rebels and a major split in the ranks of al-Qaeda-aligned jihadists, Washington officials indicated. A State Department spokesman said Mr. Obama would this week consider a wide range of options. Conditions on the ground have worsened that is frankly concerning. The Western-backed Syrian National Coalition is in disarray, and at the weekend openly admitted that it would not consider attending a conference while rebel groups were on the back foot. So we're seeing things completely not going the way of the rebels, and Assad is actually winning. And again, central bankers, governments need to get this war started. They need to do something, and right now it is not going their way. It is not happening. So right now, what do they need to do this? What do they need to get this thing moving? They need to create an event that can bring this home for them and get us into these wars that they know they have to do. They know for a fact that they are going to have to do something, and do something quickly. Okay, let's move on here. There was an article that said the dirty secrets of the Washington elites. President Obama called his vast domestic spying operations a modest encroachment on privacy. Another defender of the eavesdropping state, Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein, assures Americans they would support the president's stance if only they knew as much as she does. Here's the rub, she said. The instance where this has produced good, has disrupted plots, prevented terrorist attack, is all classified. That's what's so hard about this. Let's call this bullshit. Because Department of Homeland Security terrorist alert system does not work. They never have anything on there. They had no idea about the Boston bombing. They didn't prevent anything. And all the other setups were FBI false flags where they set these people up to do certain things. And this is what they always hide behind. They always hide behind it's classified. Well, let me ask you. If they disrupted these plots, why do they still have to be classified? Why can't they tell us what they were as soon as it happened? It's a bunch of bull. And again, we have to go back to our forefathers. We have to go back, to the founding fathers of, who knew what they were all about. And that's why Benjamin Franklin said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And I know Dianne Feinstein and Bonner brand Edward Snowden a traitor. Now, I see it differently. I see that this guy said, wait a minute, we are doing the wrong thing here. We are not for the people. We're working against the people. The government and all the agencies are supposed to work for the people. So he decided, as a patriot, to say, you know what? This isn't right. This isn't something that we should be doing. So he came out and, brought this to the world's attention. And you have to remember, Dianne Feinstein and Bonner, who sit on their ass, where Dianne Feinstein gets all these contracts for her husband and makes millions, and Bonner and both of them receiving a salary, great health benefits, sitting up there doing absolutely nothing, not knowing what's going on, are trying to tell us that this guy's a traitor. No, you are a traitor for what you have been doing. You don't work for the people. See, this is what these people don't understand. They think they're above the people. But guess what? They're not. They're not doing anything to help the people. I mean, they should be, let's put it this way, their actions, to me, speak louder than what they're saying. To me, knowing that they're not outraged, that this agency is spying on people, not in accordance with the Constitution, tells me one thing. They are not for the people. They are for the government. And Mark Twain, and Edward Edward Snowden is a patriot, and Mark Twain says, "In the beginning of a change, the patriot is a scarce man, and brave, and hated, and scorned. When his cause succeeds, the timid join him, for then it costs nothing to be a patriot." So we can see this happening, and this is the first one. And we're going to see many more. Now, other disturbing things. Maine Corps, a list of millions of Americans that will be subject to detention during martial law. So this article goes on to say, are you on the list? Are you one of the millions of Americans that have been designated a threat to national security by the U.S. government? Will you be subject to detention when martial law is imposed during a major national emergency? As you will see below, there is actually a list that contains names of at least 8 million Americans known as Maine Corps that the U.S. intelligence community has been compiling since the 80s. And it goes on to say, Maine Corps is the code name of a database maintained since the 80s by the federal government of the United States. Maine Corps contains personal and financial data of millions of U.S. citizens believed to be a threat to national security. And, this data comes from the NSA, FBI, CIA, and other sources. And it is collected without warrants or court orders. So an infringement on our Fourth Amendment right there. And they are creating these lists because they know when the collapse comes, there are going to be certain groups that are going to be a problem. And they're going to need to detain them and get rid of them as quickly as possible. Now, like I said, there is going to be some type of an event that is coming. Now, we saw something in Santa Monica, which I think is a prelude to what is coming. They're just building their case. Now, if you look at my timeline, and it's the tab up top that says economic collapse, it really doesn't say timeline, but if you click on that, it brings you through the timeline, and I keep adding things to it. I listed all the shootings up to the main shooting in Sandy Hook where they try to get the gun bill passed, and they're doing the same thing now, but they're going to accelerate this because they don't have that much time. So Santa Monica, they displayed the AR-15, they're making the case, and the lady who was the victim is out there telling how scared she was, and they're building the case to get this gun law passed because they really need to get the weapons away from Americans. And they're also trying to get the UN arms treaty signed. And basically what they're saying here, a majority in the U.S. Senate has told President Barack Obama not to sign the UN arms treaty. But nonetheless, this past Monday, Secretary of State John Kerry said that Obama will sign a controversial gun control treaty by the United Nations. We look forward to signing it as soon as the process of conforming the official language is completely satisfied. Basically what he's saying, as soon as we get this next event, completely going, we're not going to do anything because we need this event to push this bill through so the president can sign it. And basically, it goes on to say, despite rumors to the contrary, I don't think even Obama, surely one of the most arrogant people to ever occupy the Oval Office, will try to do an end run around this constitutional requirement, but still the president has come out in favor of it, and Kerry says the administration is eager to sign it. Of course not. They are creating this main event that will really help them, and I'm thinking now this event is going to be a little bit larger than just collecting the guns, and we'll go into that in a little bit. I just want to get through the rest here, and then we can go through what I think is going to happen in accordance with what other people have said. But there was another article about cyber attacks more dangerous to energy grid than superstorms, and they compared it to the Sandy Hook superstorm. And basically, John Licata, a former energy trader who now heads the energy research firm Blue Phoenix, tells the Daily Ticker, weather is not our only issue. Cybersecurity could be more widespread than any storm this country has ever seen. He explains the fact that nuclear facilities can be targeted, water facilities can be targeted, has a huge implication for the energy space. And basically they go on to say, but that the software is vulnerable. A September 2012 policy report from the James A. Baker III Institute for Public Policy at Rice University says the potential for a real cyber attack capable of physically impacting electricity generation and transmission, as well as upstream and downstream oil and gas operations, has moved from hypothetical to possible, according to this report. And it goes on to say, Paul Stockton, the Assistant Secretary for Homeland Defense and America's Security Affairs at the Department of Defense, told the Aspen Institute last July that the terrorist attack on the U.S. electric grid could cause a long-term, large-scale outage that could affect critical defense infrastructure at home and abroad. So they are paving the way, and they are ready now from the Directive 20 that the president is going to use targets to cyber attack. They are ready to really have this whole thing be set up for the end game here to completely move their entire agenda forward in martial law, gun confiscation, the removal of those groups that are going to get in their way. Spying on Americans will continue. The siphoning of money out of banks will happen. People will be put into darkness. There'll be rioting. There'll be unrest. There'll be people who will break into homes, they'll break into stores, they will go hungry, people will die from this. When they say this is just like a nuclear explosion, it will be without the radiation. Actually, it'll probably be worse because you'll be scared in your home from all the rioting that is happening outside. Because when people get hungry and the lights go out, not for 1 or 2 or 3 days, it goes out to 2 to 3 weeks or maybe longer, people who are not prepared will go insane. Basically, that's it. I mean, and they know this, and they know that they can push this, and they can use this to their advantage to wrap this whole thing up, and it's so easy to do. It's so easy to blame China or Iran or Syria, whoever they want to blame. It doesn't really matter at that point, to get us into war. So they are just making their case, and they're moving this thing forward. Now, they're going to try the other false flags first before they use the main event, but they are completely ready and set up to do this. Now, there were bomb threats in Princeton University, Morristown High School, Southwest Airlines, Atlanta Airport, Richmond Airport, and I think they're just building and building the case and starting to scare tactics for what is coming. And it just seems unbelievable that this is just all just happening. It just can't be a coincidence, and you know that all of this is happen. All of this is starting to happen. All these laws have been put in place, and all these things are starting to merge and meld together, and we're starting to see things happen that we shouldn't be seeing unless there's something coming. Now, on the Sunday night Hagman and Hagman report, someone from the forum, the People, brought this to my attention. I listened to it, and basically, I'm just going to read what it says here. That Doug had been forced to arrange the police protection for his home and family. While talking to his DH insider, he stated his inside source was in tears. His insider had received a note inside his car door threatening to rape and kill his wife and daughter. So basically what I'm thinking is they know who he is right now, and this whole thing's starting to fall apart. His insider stated the plan is to bring hell upon the American people in a short period of time, within 30 days. While not positive, he believes they're looking at a July 3rd, 4th, or 5th type of date. And then I went to my sidebar on the x22report.com where I have the potential false flags, and we see a couple things that are going to happen during that time. And let me just finish what he says here. It will be a false flag type of event big enough to cause martial law. The event will be different in different parts of the country. It will be different in LA than in New York, different in Baltimore than in Cleveland. The bullets the DHS has been buying have been distributed throughout the country. You probably drive by them every day. They're in empty storefronts, empty malls. There's no way to stop it. They're looking for a reason to shoot and kill Americans. The highest level government are actually talking about their perceived role in the biblical in this biblical prophecy. Collapse of the dollar will coincide with World War III and will start in Syria and happen soon. Now, when I look, we know for a fact that the gun laws in CISPA are pending in the Senate, and I've said this over and over, and laws and executive orders are in place. You have to remember the NDAA, the Miranda exception law, the emergency preparedness. Basically, it's a blueprint for peacetime martial law and gives the president the power to take just about anything deemed necessary for national defense, whatever they decide that is. And the president can declare this without Congress or anything like that if he deems it necessary. And also, the U.S. military grants itself the authority to deploy troops in American cities without presidential or local approval. And again, we know that DHS works with local law enforcement orders. They have billions of rounds of ammunition, and they have 2,700 armored tanks and over 240,000 officers. So when we look at what he just said and what is going on, we can see from the potential false flags that I have on the sidebar of the site that we have a couple false flags. One is a terrorist super access to strike within U.S., and these all have links to them. Now, this one says terrorists plan for a major attack that is to take place within weeks of May 14th. Now, when they say within weeks of May 14th, is that, could it be the month of June? Could it be the month of July? We don't know. We also have in July a New York City mock chemical drill where they're going to disperse chemicals into the subway system, which are not lethal, and they're going to see how chemical weapons would affect the subway system. Now, this, I believe, is going to be used as a false flag to say that, some Islamic jihadist Muslim from, Iran or Syria did this in the subway system and used real gas, and we need to go to war. Look what they just attacked us. That's what I believe this is going to be used for. The one that I think matches this perfectly is, you have to remember Kokesh, who was going to march in Washington over that bridge with loaded weapons, has recently canceled that. But what is still going on and what is still moving forward is he told everyone, gun owners with loaded or not loaded weapons, depending on whatever you want to do, to march on all state capitals. And this is supposedly going on July 4th. And it would be so easy for them to infiltrate the group and start a bloodbath of killing people and saying that the gun owners started it. And if this happens around the country, and you have to remember what he said, that it's going to be different in New York, Baltimore, in Cleveland, in different parts of the country, because they don't know if everyone is going to march. So if people march in New York because they have these draconian gun laws, if they march in California because they have these draconian gun laws, or Chicago, compared to the other states where the laws aren't as strict, we're going to see different outcomes. But it will be the same outcome when the federal government says, okay, we can't have this right now because it's getting out of control. We just had a bloodbath, people laying dead in the street. The military has now decided that they need to engage in this and take control of the situation. DHS has now been authorized to go into local law enforcement to declare martial law, so we can see how this is going to play out. And it could turn into a martial law, gun confiscation, the beginning of the end. And how are people going to react to this? It's going to be a scary situation, because think about it. They're not going to knock on your door. They're going to say, DHS, give us your guns, and they're going to come in, just like they did in Boston. Again, that was a test. Just think about what's going to happen when people are outside your door. What do you do? And this, we're looking at something coming very quickly. And this also coincides with the gun legislation that is in the Senate. I mean, they can wrap this whole thing up. Now, if nobody marches, or they just march in New York, or they just march in New York and California, this is why it could be different everywhere. And this is why I feel that this really fits in. And this is not, something where like, oh, maybe it will happen. I mean, these are all things that are supposed to happen on these dates. And I've been tracking them so we can see what's going to happen. And, once this happens, it means we are getting very, very close to the end game here. And if this chemical attack, if that's what's going to happen, doesn't bring us into war, remember, they still have the cyber attack to fall back on. And again, I'm just saying that this fits perfectly into what he was saying, but it could be any other type of event. We have no idea what they have planned, and if I was a mind reader, I'd be rich and I would know a lot. But all I can do is look at facts, try to fit them into what's being said by other people, and try to break it down and make a determination of what will happen. So listen, everyone. Comment on what you think is going to happen. This is what I'm looking at, and this is what I'm seeing right now. And again, we have to be prepared. We don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know what type. Let's say there is martial law, we don't know what this is going to look like. We've never experienced this before. We've never experienced any of this. This is all new, and Americans are going to be taken by surprise, and it's going to shock them, and a lot of them are not going to understand what's going on. They're going to, you have to remember, they also have laws in place in different cities, and also the DHS saying, if you see something, say something. So you have to be very careful. If this goes down the way they're saying it's going to go down, you're going to have your neighbors ratting you out if they know you have a gun. Everyone has to be very careful and be prepared, because we don't know how this is going to turn out. So listen, everyone, be safe, be well, and especially be prepared. Thank you very much for listening.